Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Policy Beats. Today we are joined here with Mr. Gleb, who works as a junior research fellow center on the Indian Ocean region at Primakov National Research Institute of World Economy and International Relations and Russian Academy of Sciences, which is one of the leading Russian academic institutes and think tanks in international relations. Thank you so much, Mr. Gleb, for joining us.
Thank you for hosting me.
How do you feel? I heard it's your first time in Pakistan?
Yeah, actually it is the first time being in Pakistan. I find the country amazing. I find the people who hosted me here, who made all the conditions for me so comfortable. And thank you everyone for hosting me, to my friends, to my colleagues at the ISSI, where I'm on my fellowship. So, and thank you, Ipri, for hosting me here and, for a chance to have a conversation.
No, it's wonderful. And we hope that you continue to, keep coming to Pakistan and we connect more on a people-to-people level. So we also learned that you're also fluent in Urdu and Hindi. And I think we should take a lesson on our end to learn the Russian language as well. It motivates us rather.
जी, लेकिन मुझे उर्दू ज़बान थोड़ी थोड़ी आ रही है और मुझे लगता है कि रूसी ज़बान सीखने के लिए तो बहुत कोशिश करना चाहिए और मुझे उम्मीद है कि हम दोनों रूसी ज़बान या उर्दू ज़बान में बोल सकेंगे और पाकिस्तानियों को जो मेरे साथ बातें करते थे उन्होंने भी बहुत शुक्रिया because I can't imagine how difficult it should be to speak with me in Urdu so as to increase my language, I mean my command of language, and one should have some patience to wait for me to formulate ideas and find appropriate words. So thank you guys for this as well.
नहीं, बिल्कुल हमें बहुत खुशी होगी कि कोई और भी हमारी लैंग्वेज को उसी तरह से रिस्पेक्ट दे, उसमें बातचीत करे और हमारे लिए भी ये बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है if we want to learn what's going on in the world, and if we are interested in a particular region, the language plays a very important role in understanding the people and society.
Absolutely.
So that being said, today's discussion we will largely base it on the Middle East dynamics, especially in the backdrop of what we saw with Bashar al-Assad's regime being overthrown by the rebel forces led by HTS. And largely, of course, one wonders now what would be Russia's strategy in the region, because Syria was understood to be one of the pivotal, countries when it comes to the Middle East. And how does the takeover of the rebel forces sort of disrupt or change Russia's strategy towards the region? What can we foresee in the future?
Actually, a very difficult question, because even the experts concentrating on the Middle East so far, try to avoid direct answers. I should highlight here that I'm not an expert on the Middle East agenda. I can just deliver for you some takes from the discussion going on in Russian expert community.
Exactly.
And which I follow. And firstly, I think we should say that Russian military operation in Syria is still a pivotal moment in Russian foreign policy. And it was a success at the moment. Some say till 2018, when it concerned the military domain only, and Russian Air Forces, some special forces, for the most sensitive operations, and of course we should mention here Wagner Group warriors, they did contribute to saving Bashar al-Assad government. But then the situation started changing because war is war, but one needs to reconstruct a country, and there was a lack of resources, economic in general, financial in particular, to move further. And some say that Bashar al-Assad's government did not estimate rightly how they should provide their law enforcement agencies and the army with equipment and finances and so on and so forth. That is why we saw such a collapse, because when the armed opposition offensive started, everyone was surprised at one moment. But those who were familiar with the matter said that they are not surprised at all, because they predicted some crisis sooner or later, and Aleppo taken for 3 days allegedly did not surprise them, but the overall fall of the government did surprise, and that is what no one could expect. But now we are at the crossroads. I would say that Russia took, there are two hits towards the Russian position in the region. First one is reputation, of course, because when one country supports another, one expects this support to be successful. And of course, there are some reputation losses. But I think that I should highlight here that till the last moment, Russian air forces defended Damascus, defended Bashar al-Assad government, and they did not just withdraw from the country. They continued fighting, and they did it as far as they could. So that is why I think that one lesson any country should take from that is that no foreign support would help you if you don't want and you don't have capacities to fight for yourself.
Absolutely.
And another hit, I think, another loss concerns some troubles with the logistics to Africa.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Syria and Russian bases in Syria were very important points for further transportation to Africa. We'll see how it would work out, because now there should be some negotiations. You should highlight here that Russian embassy is intact. Russian bases are intact so far. And probably one could suppose that Russia will be able to make a deal with the new government in Damascus. So now I think that one should take fingers crossed on this matter. But no one is sure, and no one is ready to make
the first step.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting because we can draw some level of parallel with what happened in Afghanistan as well. Everyone thought that the Afghan National Defense Forces would withstand the Taliban's, the coming of Taliban. But within hours, we saw the entire state that existed crumble. And then we sort of see similar images in Syria, of course. different dynamics, but largely one could draw such parallels as well. I am curious though, as you also mentioned the bases, and for anyone that wants to exert their military influence in the region, naval bases also play an important role. So how central then becomes, especially the Tartus naval base, and Russia's military presence in Syria when it comes to its broader Middle Eastern strategy? Because while I understand that negotiations are still taking place, but what do you ascertain from this situation in your own personal capacity, or what you understand from official statements so far?
So, as I have already said, one should see a difference between the situation in Afghanistan and in Syria, because Russians did not fail their ally, and they did not leave Syria. They're still there.
That is true.
Yeah, and they try to to work out something. Instead of just dropping all the things and living with, with the Syrian elites, I mean Bashar al-Assad elites. And if we take into account the significance of those bases, I think that they are mostly they are of need for further logistics to Africa, right? And I can't delve into details because I'm just I don't know them very well. Yeah, but I think that saving those bases would be a priority number one right now. And I would say that Russian military heft in the region did not take any shame for what was happened, for what has happened. Yes, the score is on the table, as we say it in Russian, and the regime has fallen, and it's not good for Russian reputation. But still, I think that we've got such diversified ties in the region. Russia enjoys a good reputation as a business partner, as a political partner, in political dialogues. So I hope that it will not, denigrate much Russian posture in the region.
Okay, so that being said, I just wanted to bring something to your attention as well. I thought it was quite interesting. There's this statement that's floating all over Twitter and social media platforms that there are no permanent terrorists, just interests. So drawing from this statement, how do you see, because I understand that there was a certain framing done when it came to fighting off the rebel forces, and largely the fight against them was based on the agenda that it's counterterrorism. So now, how does Russia's framing of its involvement in Syria as a fight against terrorism hold up in the face of changing dynamics on the ground?
Of changing
dynamics on the ground with the rebel forces now in power.
Yeah, I got it. So, as far as I can understand, Russian leadership considered the goal of fighting terrorism to be achieved in last decade.
Okay.
So, the defeat of the ISIS was the main goal then. And destroying ISIS facilities and ISIS, cells in Syria was considered to. This goal was considered to be achieved.
Okay.
That is why now the situation, is a bit softer with regards to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. But still, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is considered to be a terrorist group not only by Russia, but by the UN Security Council and by many countries in the world. So one should think how to deal with them. As far as I can understand, they try to reinvent themselves from their side, And Russia and other actors in the region are likely to reinvent their attitude towards them. There is a consensus in Russian expert circles who have been, very, close to Bashar al-Assad government and to the consultations with them, that, such a fast collapse of the regime indicates that there was actually no public support at all. And that was Russian argumentation with regards to Afghanistan
Yes.
several years ago. That if the incumbent government cannot, take a few days without American support, so then one should communicate somehow with the Taliban, because it is the force that enjoys some public support. So I think that same logics would be applied to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and other groupings. There is a dozen of groupings, and several groupings, even in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham itself. Not being an Arabist, I'm not ready to to discuss what are their position and what they're going to do. But I could say for the logics of the Russian leadership, that they are likely to find some ground for communication with them in coming days, months, and years.
I think it's understandable, because a country that has been present there for such a long time, they're bound to then come to some sort of conclusion, some sort of negotiation. Everyone has their own strategic objectives. That being said, I would like to know a little bit more how this impacts US-Russia ambitions with the rebel forces now in power. How does Russia then engage with the new regime setup when so many other Western powers are probably vying to, bring their own influence?
I'm not sure that Western powers will try to bring their influence to Syria, because bringing power to Syria implies some responsibility, and I don't know what country would be ready to take full responsibility for reconstructing Syria right now, and for maintaining dialogue, and for contributing to maintaining dialogue within various political groups that are now in power. We saw some statements from Donald Trump that one should not draw attention to Syria much. I'm not sure that it would work out when he comes to the office.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, if we read through American strategic documents for the last 15 years, they want to leave the region. They want to concentrate on the Asia-Pacific or the Indo-Pacific, how they put it, and but the Middle East still takes them. Once you come there, you'll be there.
You'll stay there for good.
You'll stay there, and my colleagues who concentrate on American build-up, American military build-up, and American strategies in different regions have been constantly pointing out constantly demonstrating that they can't leave the Middle East. Just can't. There are so many incidents taken which demands American attention, so that they can't. Probably Donald Trump will try to finally withdraw forces from Syria.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, and at the same time, I'm not sure that there would be some other power from the West who would be eager to come there and counterweight Russian influence or something. So I think that it is for Russia itself to decide in what direction to move in Syria, whether to continue negotiations, whether to withdraw because no agreement has been achieved or something. I don't think that there could be some arena for for competition with the Western powers.
Okay.
If one does not consider Turkey to be such. to be a Western power.
I do have questions pertaining to that as well. But I guess another lesson that a lot of bigger countries could take home is that military interventions have their own costs. And maybe in this day and age, it may be hard to achieve the desired success from military interventions as well. We saw that in Afghanistan. As you mentioned, that as long as there is no public support, that military intervention or support towards the state fails. The way Bashar al-Assad's regime, was sort of decimated within hours. So, with that being said, and since you brought Turkey into the conversation, I am curious. Russia-Turkey relations have been quite an area of interest. A lot of people enjoy seeing Turkey's foreign policy. It's pretty multifaceted. But then one wonders is how would Russia and Turkey, collaborate in managing this particular incident or crisis that took place. And not just in Syria, but in other countries like Libya, for example. So how do you see both of these countries coming together or having their own differences when it comes to managing conflicts as such?
So, first of all, I think one should bear in mind that we've got so many ups and downs in Russia-Turkey relations, even for the last 10 years. We could recall the incident in 2015 when Russian jet was attacked by Turkish armed forces, and we've got a very deep crisis lasting for a year. Our relations were in fact frozen, but then Russia, Iran, and Turkey managed to launch so-called Astana format.
Yes,
and it worked. And now we see that Erdogan was not really happy with its achievements. The last summit was in 2020, right? And after another escalation of the conflict, and they managed to limit some borders to decide what should be on the ground. And now we see that Turkey allegedly sponsored some groupings in this offense, and they did succeed. But I would not say that it brings much. It should bring much credit to Turkey, because now no one knows what's going to be further, how these groupings would behave in coming months and years.
that is true.
And I think that it will not actually affect Russia-Turkey relations, because the situation is always changing, and we got used to maintaining a dialogue with such a difficult partner. There are no illusions in Russia about Turkey and its current leadership, that they pursue only their national interests, and they could do anything that will serve their interests at the moment, and they will not take into account Russian concerns or something. And I think that Russia just should make it the same way, and maintain all the agreements, and contribute to peace on the ground, to negotiations on the ground, but still be quite responsible and be ready for some changes in the positions.
But I'm sure that Turkey's foreign policy actions don't go missing from Russian lens.
Yeah.
Like, for example, them supporting, with the drones in Ukraine. And obviously, these are very different stances. But at the same time, when Turkey blocks or, limits the ascension of some countries in NATO, that also shows it trying to maintain balance in its ties with Russia, and then on certain level providing drones and then maintaining its relations with the West as well.
Yeah.
So just personally, I find, their foreign policy to be quite interesting.
It is, and some our specialists who concentrate on Russia or on Turkey and the Middle East, they highlight that, Turkey tends to play higher than it should. And it could be attributed to, some specifics of Recep Tayyip Erdogan character.
The strong man.
Yeah. And his ambitions, actually. I don't know whether it would bring good results for Turkey in general, because they've got so many problems in their economy. And, conducting such a proactive foreign policy brings benefits at the moment, but I don't see an ultimate goal of that.
Okay.
We see Turkey, as I mentioned, everywhere. In Libya, in Syria.
In Africa even.
In Africa, yeah. But I don't know what they're trying to pursue, in fact. Probably that's because I'm not into the details much. But if those details are not on the ground, and if they are not seen by, an average IR specialist, so I'm still in doubt whether they exist. Yeah.
It's interesting because we also see Turkey's ingress in Central Asia with the organization of the Turkey Council. May have said it wrong, but I know that they're working on that end. And so, since we're on the subject, how does Russia then view Turkey's growing sort of not just military influence, but just in general influence in Central Asia and the Caucasus? The entire, incident with Azerbaijan and Armenia, Turkey was, it had its own crucial role to play. So how does Russia view Turkey's ingress within Central Asia? How does that affect bilateral relations?
So when it comes to Azerbaijan, I think that Russian leadership considers, Azerbaijan and Turkey as natural allies, and it does not bother Russian leadership much.
Okay.
Because it was proclaimed by leaders of the countries many times, and there is no surprise for Russia, not at all. When it comes to Central Asia, the situation is more complicated, because one of my colleagues concentrates on Turkish investments into Central Asia. And I should say that, according to her research, there is more rhetoric, one more time, than real deals. It was, $1.5 billion of investments for several years. It's not very much. It's incompatible with the Chinese ones
and the
Russian ones. Yeah, that is why we're seeing many platforms where Turkey tries to play a role of great power and very influential actor. But when one delves into the details, they could find out that there is just rhetoric and not much, not so much substance.
Okay.
So that's what I think. And when we are talking about Turkey and Azerbaijan and Armenia case, one should also delve into the details, and he or she will see that it is not Turkey that was number one supplier of military assets to Azerbaijan. Not at all. And even Israel stands higher than
Azerbaijan and Israel have a very strong relationship. We in Pakistan always find that quite interesting, because often, when we speak about brotherhood, it's Turkey, Azerbaijan, Pakistan relationship. Just a little thing I wanted to throw in there, that it always comes as a surprise to at least people in Pakistan who may not be aware of Azerbaijan's very deep relationships with Israel, which only surfaced when the recent incident happened with the Iranian mission that was coming back from Azerbaijan. Just a little thought I thought I'd mention here. But no, it's quite interesting how both countries are pursuing their relationship, and so far it seems that neither of Russia or Turkey want to break away from their relationship. And there's still a certain degree of a long-term partnership across different.
And I think that Russian leadership find these kind of relations quite comfortable, ironically, because there is no such things as ideological positions or something. Russian leadership finds national interest a good ground for changing policies or for taking some strong actions, so on and so forth. But when it does not come to to attacking Russian jet fighters, but in general, they find these logics quite understandable. That is why there is not going to be any breakaway from my perspective. But further consultations, negotiations, interaction on many issues.
But as long as they're talking to each other, things will be sorted, is what I understand. So now let's move a little bit, not a little bit, quite a lot towards the Asia-Pacific side of things. And Russia-China partnership has strengthened over the years, and it shows in the different kind of setups and engagements between President Putin and Xi Jinping as well. So that being said, I also understand that Russia is pursuing its own policy, especially when it comes to Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia plays a very interesting role when it comes to the Asia-Pacific, or what a lot of people now call the Indo-Pacific dynamics. So how significant do you think right now is Russia's posturing within the Southeast Asian nations? And what can we foresee with regards to Russian interests within the region?
So, I think that first of all, I should say something not very popular in Russia, but I think that it is a good topic for discussion. It concerns the very constructs of the Asia-Pacific and the Indo-Pacific. I think that first of all, Russia should coin their own Indo-Pacific strategy, and get used to using such a notion with regards to the region, because ASEAN has its Indo-Pacific vision, Indonesia has its Indo-Pacific vision. I'm not talking about India for sure and Japan, but even
most countries have their own. Singapore has its own.
And even though Chinese officials criticize the Indo-Pacific construct as a as a term for confrontation, as a confrontational construct, Remin Jibao Gazette, a newspaper, used this in 2021. And if Remin Jibao uses such a construct, I think that Russia could use it as well. And the point about the Indo-Pacific construct is that any country tries to coin their own vision of the Indo-Pacific, and why Russia can't create its own strategy, I don't know, because I think that it would be fine if Russia coin its own Indo-Pacific strategy. Of course, it would involve China there, because our Indian colleagues do not involve China there, which is, from my perspective, is not very adequate.
Okay.
And Russian could involve China. Russian version could involve all the other countries, I mean, the ASEAN. And of course, India, the Middle East, and even the Eastern Africa, as we discussed today, which is of much importance for Russia, and it's quite connected to the Middle East for Russia. So that's what Russian policy lacks in this direction, from my perspective. But we've got some successes. The most, significant success, from my perspective, is that Singapore, which is considered to be an unfriendly country in Russia, there is a list of so-called unfriendly countries. Yeah, unfriendly countries, and but still, we've got such good relations with an unfriendly country when it comes to trade of oil,
economics.
Yeah, when it comes to economics, financial resources, and so on and so forth. So it demonstrates that Russian foreign policy in this direction could be also pragmatic. Because from my perspective, when we start talking about the Indo-Pacific construct, it lacks pragmatism too much. But in bilateral relations, in multilateral relations with the ASEAN, it's quite pragmatic, and there are hopes for for further engagement with those countries.
Okay. Yes. That's interesting, because I guess if not every area of the region needs to be treated from a very sort of harsh, realistic geopolitical lens, perhaps it's the geoeconomics of things that could function well here. That does bring me to the question then, what role do initiatives like the Eurasian Economic Union then play in connecting Russia to Southeast Asia? And, then how significant does ASEAN become when it comes to Russia's trade diversification strategies?
So, we could recall that it was 2019, probably, when the Eurasian Economic Union and Singapore signed an FTA agreement. It was not ratified. Then COVID-19 happened, then special military operation started, and it was not ratified. But we see that there is some potential for this interaction. So far, I think that further cooperation between Eurasian Economic Union and Southeastern Asia is a kind of toxic, topic, because all the countries in the world are aware of secondary sanctions, and it's quite understandable. Russian side does not judge anyone for this. It's quite pragmatic, and I don't think that there would be some breakthroughs in the near future.
Okay.
When it comes to Eurasian Economic Union, I think that what concerns ASEAN, one should recall that Russian foreign policy in the Southeastern Asia is quite ASEAN-centric. Some could argue that it is too ASEAN-centric, and that Russia could facilitate, its relations with Southeastern Asia more on bilateral basis to facilitate relations on other multilateral platforms. But so far, Russian position is strictly in line with the ASEAN ones.
Okay.
With the ASEAN, and Russian leadership admires this grouping and relies, some say, too much on this. But I think that the situation is not going to change in near future.
Okay.
And Russia will also will further, try to develop ties with all those nations, whether it would be in the ASEAN format or on bilateral basis.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there are some, good prospects of collaboration between Russia and Singapore, as it, but it's funny, but it's so. Russia and Vietnam, of course.
Laos.
Laos, Thailand, Myanmar,
of course.
Myanmar. When it comes to defense cooperation.
Defense, exactly.
Yeah, to defense cooperation. Indonesia. Defense cooperation as well, but there is a nuance. When it comes, to discussion over their buying of BrahMos missiles. So, and yes, there are some, bright prospects for the region, but it depends on Russian business, whether it comes there or not.
Okay.
Whether we have good, terms for complementary cooperation, complementary in macroeconomic terms.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as usual, when it comes to people-to-people contacts. Because actually we've got so much achievements in so-called high politics. There is no country in the Southeastern Asia where we've got bad relations with anyone, with any government. I can't recall.
Well, largely it seems like a stable place, despite its own issues. And allow me to then come to one of our last, our last question, quite broad, but and then so just discussing defense cooperation and so on. How does then Russia engage the Southeast Asian maritime security issues, particularly those pertaining to the South China Sea, because that is a tumultuous region. Many countries have different and difficult ties with China, while many are trying to sort of move, have that strategic autonomy while also maintaining ties with China and the US, and also pushing through their own strategic interests within that area. So that will be my last question on this.
Yeah, actually a very broad one.
But perhaps you can highlight a few major interests regarding this.
So, first of all, I should say that Russia does not approve American interventionism in the region. Of course, it insists that it is for regional actors to decide this issue, to make decisions on this issue. Secondly, I should tell you a story that when our Indian colleagues ask me whether Russia has become fully subordinate to China or not.
A lot of people like to argue that Russia is a junior partner.
Has become subordinate or not. I always, bring an example that in South China Sea conflict, Russia actually stands on Vietnamese side and admits that it is Vietnam that is right in this conflict. So that is why, despite our strategic partnership with China, Russia does not just, follow Chinese policies in all the spheres, and does not, coordinate its position with Beijing in the matters of security issues. And I think that anyway, Russian involvement in the Asia-Pacific security matters cannot be very crucial as long as we don't have enough population in the Far East. As long as we don't have a big navy in the Far East, and we do not invest, as long as we don't invest much resources into further development of all the Far East. So I think that, and I hope that the current policy of stimulating people to come to the Far East and to launch businesses there, and to develop relations with our partners in the Asia-Pacific should in fact stimulate Russia's involvement in any issue, in any matter, when it comes to the Asia-Pacific.
No, I think that's a very solid point, because we're seeing that sort of policy of building the Far East, and in my own experience of visiting the Russian Far East, and how government officials over there were very much willing to include the Asian side of Russia, to engage more with Mongolia, Vietnam, other countries, and a lot more. So I think that would then entail larger stakes within the region once you have that sort of interaction developed. With that being said, Mr. Kleb, it was a pleasure to host you. I know I must have, taken you all over with the questions, but thank you so much for taking out the time and sharing with us, the perspective of your country and also what you think as an academic. It brings a lot of value to our platform.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, for hosting me. So, I hope that you found this conversation fruitful and interesting.
No, we hope that you continue
because I did. I actually did.
No, I really hope that you continue to visit us and we continue to exchange these important conversations and more so build more towards our people-to-people collaboration and, have our nations come together.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into Policy Beats. See you again on another episode.